Right, I'm going to be talking about and using one of the best weapons ever known to mankind. A symbol of authority and power, used by kings and emperors and all kinds of people like that. Oh yes, an impressive weapon indeed. Not this. I mean this. Haha! A sword! Now, get this crappy thing out of the way. This, well, obviously, is a sword. This particular one is called an archer's sword because it's not particularly complicated. It's short of another sword, believe it or not. And of course, therefore, it was better for the use of people who weren't quite so good with swords. Archers. Now, important things about the sword. Let's go start with the basics. This, of course, is the blade. This is the handle, but this particular part is called the guard or the hilt. This on the back to balance it all out so it's not very blade heavy. It's called a pommel. Very nice. Usually these come in fancier designs, but this one's quite plain. This part here, this line going down the middle, sometimes it's more of a groove than just a part where it goes, a bit like the top roof of a house, instead actually being a bit of a groove, like a sort of ditch sort of thing. And it's called a fuller. And usually you'd have a decent fuller to improve the stability, the effectiveness of a blade, making it stronger so it doesn't break as easily, and making it springier, and generally making it a better blade. Now this, excuse me, this part is usually called the point of percussion, or in other words, the pointy end. And of course you have the blade. This is of museum quality, so it's properly sharp. And, well, I've explained the rest of the thing, except for, and I'm a bit worried about cutting my hand while I'm holding the blade, but usually, where the blade goes into the handle, there's a little rod about this kind of thickness, and then tapers down. It's called a tang, which basically, it's the part of the sword that breaks off the most. It's one of the biggest flaws a blade can ever have. A tang that isn't good enough and just pops out. And then you can't hold your sword anymore. But this particular one is specially designed. If you look here, there's the words, and there's a piece of metal sandwiched in between. Believe it or not, that is the tang. So as you can see, the tang is part of the handle. So, that's not going to happen with this sword. It's just going to fail because a bigger sword hits it and it bends in half. Although luckily, this isn't made of something silly like stainless steel. Never buy a stainless steel sword, because those will break. Someone goes, ha! The sword goes, like in a movie. Snaps in half, cleanly, almost. But this is made of spring steel. You can have all kinds of other steels, but any proper steel basically would make a relatively good sword blade. This one being particularly spring steel because quite springy and fun. Now I'm just going to be experimenting generally against this battered old wooden shield thing. This is just some chipboard and a plank from a door, all nailed in, and this is basically the handle. Very cheap, very crappy. This is basically a rubber bin lid, not one of those plastic ones because those would obviously break easily. I'm just going to try stabbing into them and hacking at them. So, I'm going to start with this one because it looks more like it's going to break. Or just fall off. It's becoming a bit harder to use now. No, hang on. That's better. Doesn't look too happy. What about this? Oh, for goodness sake. Hang on. Stuff all this rubbish. There we go. Oh, I have to say, this is quite a heavy blade all of a sudden. Wonder why. Might be this thing on the end. There we go. Ah. Yeah. Even swords like this, simple, powerful, and authority, all that kind of stuff, can't pierce through a shield. But it can pierce through skin and things like that, so I really don't recommend you stab yourself with it. This is a test. Because it will kill you. So yeah, I've mentioned the parts of a sword. Also, one other point I might want to make. Usually the best part for it to balance on isn't around middle, the very middle, or in the blade, just about sort of here. Just a bit forward of the hilt. Oh god, whatever you want to call it. And quite far back on the blade.